Hi everyone, my name's Nicole and this is Janelle. And today we're going to be teaching you about fire building and the different types of fire structures, the different types of material you're going to need, and then how to put out the fire safely.
One thing to remember is that you should follow the 4 Ds: down, dead, dry, and dinky. What's important about these 4 steps is that you don't want to take off of living trees like this. So anything that's on the ground is safe to use. The dry part is sometimes hit or miss because if you're stuck in an environment where it's rainy, you might have to deal with some wet branches. But if you follow those 4 Ds, you'll have the most successful fire. So now we're going to go over the 3 types of material that you should use to build your fire. The first one is to start out with tinder. Tinder is the very small and thin material that you can use to catch the fire on immediately. This includes tiny twigs like this, dead leaves, and some grasses can be used. The next thing is kindling. What's important about kindling is that it should be no bigger than the size of your finger, and in general your wood should only be about the length of your forearm or less. So this would be used next to start to build the fire, and the fire will catch onto this more easily and begin to burn. Once you have a fire base started like that, then you want to move on to fuel. So fuel is the biggest. You want it to be no thicker than the width of your forearm, and in general this is what will burn in the longevity of your fire. So you're going to want it to be thicker, and still going by the general rule of it being no longer than your forearm. Wood like this can start off as the fuel, but then you can go on to logs, bigger branches, but remember it needs to be dead. One thing to keep in mind before you even start to build your fire is the spot where you're going to build it. So usually you would want to be at a already made fire pit that's low in the ground and has a metal or stone barrier to make sure that the fire doesn't jump out. But if you have to make your own, then you want it to be kind of dug in, and you want to make sure that there's a lot of clear space around it, because you don't want any flammable objects nearby that could spark and spread very quickly. The area, you want to make sure it's like clean and brushed out. Keep your materials of safe distance away, and just make sure that you are taking the proper precautions before you even begin to start making your fire. So now we're going to go over the different types of structures for building your fire. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the log cabin structure. First, you want to start with your kindling, because this is what's going to be the base of your structure. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it in a stacking type of structure like this, probably closer together, so that there is a hole in the center for where you're going to put your tinder. So then you're going to want to take your dry tinder. Unfortunately, I have wet leaves because we just got done with a rainstorm. You're going to tuck this into the center. So when you light this on fire, you want to light the center, and then you'll cover this with more kindling so that it can catch fire to that. And then you'll have a solid base to begin adding your fuel. So when you add your fuel, you'll take your larger sticks and you'll start to lay it on top as you see fit. You don't want to put too many because they don't catch fire right away, and you want to have enough to get you through the night, depending on how long you're going to stay and how long you're going to need your fire. So now we're going to go over the teepee structure. What you're going to start with is your tinder, which will be in the center of your pit, and you're going to take your kindling and start to put it in a pyramid shape over top of it. Typically you're going to want these sticks to be a lot shorter so that they're pretty much snug on top of the tinder. For these purposes, we're just kind of exaggerating the shape. So once this starts to burn, it's probably gonna start to collapse a little bit. So then you're gonna take your fuel and you're gonna lay it around the outside. At this point, it can start to stack like this, and you'll start to want to slowly add your fuel to increase the longevity of your fire. So now we're gonna talk about the last common structure, which is the crisscross. So how you wanna do this is pretty simple. It's kind of like the second phase of the teepee when it's kind of collapsed, but instead it starts out like that. So you take your kindling. In general, it's pretty self-explanatory. You put them in a crisscross pattern, probably the more flammable sticks on the bottom, so the smaller ones, and you do that. So then you take your tinder and you start to tuck it in there. You're gonna wanna make sure it's under as much as possible because the fire will go up and start to latch onto the kindling. So then once that starts to burn, you'll do the same thing with your fuel. You'll start to lay it across in crisscross patterns until it's built up to where you want it. So now it's the morning after, and you've had your fire going all night. So now we're gonna show you how to safely put out the fire. So in your fire pit, you're gonna want to drench it with water. What you wanna do is take a lot of water and you're gonna wanna pour it all around on the materials you've burned. You wanna make sure that there is nothing burning, that all the ashes are scattered and put out. So then, ideally this would be a deep in the ground fire pit, but you would take a larger stick that won't catch fire and stir all the ashes, leftover sticks and logs around until you are sure that there isn't any embers left, and then you would spread it out as much as you can so that if there is any coals left, it won't catch to any of the material. You've put out your fire safely.
Thank you for watching our video. We hope now that you understand how to safely build a fire, the materials needed to build that fire, and how to safely put it out.
Come on, Thor, hit me with your lightning. Give me all you got.